Hello everybody. Welcome to 1 Year in the Life of a Program Manager. I'm AvivaCarmen, and here is kind of my life on a slide. In my career life, I've been fortunate enough to be part of some very large programs, a $40 million website redesign, a $1 billion data center build and move, and I've spent the last 10 years consulting in project server and starting up PMOs. But the most important thing about me is that I had the privilege of raising beautiful children who are a credit to the world. And there they are. I'm very sorry that this format doesn't allow me to get to know a little bit about each of you, but feel free to email me or LinkedIn, and I will share my email address at the end of the presentation. One of the latest crazes these days, which is really quite old, is storytelling. Storytelling works for salespeople, consultants, parents. In my last one-on-one with my manager, as a matter of fact, he started our conversation with, "So tell me a story." So I'm going to tell you a story about a program. The story starts off in a faraway land in corporate America. First, I'll tell you about the corporation and the program. I'll tell you about a year in the life of the program manager, and then some takeaways for your own corporate environment, wherever that might be. And for those of you who love seeing a Gantt chart, here's a visual of our year in the life. Now, I could lie to you and say that I planned all this out in advance. I knew exactly what I was going to do in the 4 quarters, but no, I'm doing hindsight. I realized after the fact that what I did seems to have fallen into 4 groups: standards, reporting, compliance, and persistence. So, despite the fact that I was actually contracted just to do reporting, these are the 4 sections of the program. So how did this all start? It started with a phone call from a consulting company recruiter. They told me, well, there's a company that just needs some help with project. Piece of cake, I'm thinking. And who's they? It's a large financial services company. So I go to the interview. The VP lays it out for me. "We just need some reports," he says. And while he's talking, I'm thinking, well, he said 6 months, but they just need some reports. I think it'll take me 4 weeks, but maybe I shouldn't say that to him now. We'll see. But they just need some reports. And what was the program that they needed help with? A redesign of their customer-facing website. Translate 3 million lines of code from Java to .NET. Incorporate all the bells and whistles and changes that the businesses wanted for the past 10 years. The program name was Evergreen. So let's begin with a year in the life. I roll up my sleeves and look for the projects that I'm supposed to report on. And here's the list of projects I found in the server. It's a little bit confusing. I'm reading the list and wondering which projects are in the Evergreen program, for example, which of course is the in scope for my efforts. So what's the first order of business? You got it. Implement a naming convention for the project plans. The group chooses a program name code, e.g. That'll be the first part of the project name. It gives all of us a way to easily recognize the Evergreen program's projects from the other corporate projects. Then we go on to the second parameter. We decide on functional area so that all the QA plans, for example, are identifiable as such. And it also looks good on an alphabetized list of projects. So neat, all the QAs together. We separate the parameters with underscores and allow spaces in the project name. So we get the names down pat, and now it's time to look at the schedules that we need to report on. Ouch. It's better to have unique task names so we can easily report just on a task level. For example, slipping tasks, right? Without having to include a summary task for every detailed task. In addition, it's kind of hard to know when to mark these tasks complete. There's loads of room for ambiguity in the task names. And one more thing, what's with every task taking 1 day to complete? Clearly, someone took the default out-of-the-box duration and didn't modify it. They want a project plan? I'll give them a project plan. Yeah. So there were a number of discoveries made while analyzing the schedules. There were task names like account. What? What's account? I don't know. Is that something I need to do? Is that a deliverable? Some sections had a summary task and a detailed task named the same way. Some task names repeated themselves a lot throughout the project. Code review, for example. This is fine for individual project manager use when you have a project plan on your own computer and don't need to share it with others. My problem with this, though, is that when reporting happens across projects, if we're just looking at a list of tasks, we need to easily see what's a summary task, what's a detailed task, what's a milestone, which code review are we talking about. So those standards you're looking at became the basis for a handout to all the project managers on guidelines, and it ended up working pretty well. The next problem that we needed to tackle was resource names. We needed to standardize on the resource names so we could get reports that group the tasks by resource name. We decided on a first name, last name format and put all the team members in the enterprise resource pool, this was Project Server, and bought licenses for anyone who didn't have one yet. All the project managers cleaned up their own resource sheets in their plans, proceeding to change all the Jane or Jane D or Jane no space D or Doe comma space Jane to the standard Jane space Doe. And next was security. After the project managers did all that work of making their projects beautiful and readable and understandable and standardized, they didn't really want to risk other project managers making changes to their plans, so a security model was implemented. Here's a security model we implemented as far as access to project plans. Before, everyone had read-write to everything, and then we put in a model where only a PM has writability to their own plan. So we're all happily working away, using the new guidelines to standardize, and I notice a strange thing. I run a test report and see that the data in the project plans isn't really up to date. Some tasks were completed, but the plans didn't reflect that. Some had an expected completion date of last Monday. Some had actually started a week from tomorrow. Why? I asked the project managers. Well, whenever we change something, it messes up our plans. You never heard that before, did you? Okay, I think it's time for training. Another thing I discovered is that while the project plans did in fact exist, on a day-to-day basis, the project managers were really using Excel spreadsheets to update dates when tasks would be completed. They were emailing these spreadsheets back and forth behind my back, even though we had this wonderful server with all the automated schedules right there for everyone to see. Then, before reporting time, they'd update their project plans from their contraband Excel sheets, manually copying things like the finish date. By the way, what product is Microsoft's biggest competitor, Microsoft Project? You got it, it's Excel. But nothing that a little training wouldn't resolve. And of course, to encourage buy-in to our scheduling tool, I started each class with a big "Why not Excel?" on a whiteboard and listened to the attendees' answers. Then our brown bag topics were exactly the answers to "Why not Excel?" Baselining, critical path, built-in reports, automated scheduling. And that brings us to the end of our first quarter of the program. We did discovery, we did standards, and we did training. Great. So I've given the project managers guidelines on naming conventions and plan structure, trained the newbies and the not-so-newbies on Microsoft Project and best practices. What else is there to do? Oh yeah, what I was hired for. Create reports. And of course, now we have a chance that the reports will actually be accurate and actionable. The vice presidents wanted 4 reports. They wanted a summary of projects, key deliverables and milestones report, current tasks, which are also critical and also have a late finish, and current give-gets and late finish, which we'll talk about. Cross-project dependencies. For the summary of all projects, I created a web view with stoplights. After a while, though, it started getting really annoying to the downstream project managers who had projects that were red when it was really a green project who preceded them that was at fault for their red. And the green project manager wasn't getting in trouble, and the red downstream that couldn't start yet was getting in trouble because the projects were so interdependent. And you might wonder, how could this happen? How could a green project cause the one after it to be red? Well, maybe the first project was rebaselined, so now they're green again, right? And the second project didn't know, so they didn't rebaseline. Ding, ding, ding. Time for baselining guidelines. So we put together some baselining guidelines. Anyway, we have to be as flexible and change accepting as our people. So I decided to be flexible and listen to their concerns, and I dropped the fancy stoplights, and did the weekly summary without the stoplights. So take that, you executives. No red, yellow, green for you. Report number 2 was key deliverables and milestones. Okay, let's see. Key deliverables. Deliverables are represented by summary tasks, right? But which summary tasks are key? Key milestones, easy, just filter for all the milestones. But no, they don't want all the milestones, just key milestones. So we need some custom fields and some data entry action before this report can be produced. First, we needed a way to flag which deliverables and milestones were key and would therefore show up on reports. Project Server allows you to create enterprise-wide custom fields. So I created 2 custom flag fields, key deliverables, yes, no, and key milestones, yes, no. Second, I asked the project managers to mark which ones they thought were key in their own individual projects and that we should report on regularly. So I told them, just put a yes in the custom columns. Once the project managers finished, it was time for the executives to weigh in. I created a report of all the summary tasks and milestones across the whole program, showing the ones that the project managers had marked, and asked the tech VP and the business VP to go through this giant report and mark any additional deliverables and milestones they would like to track in their weekly meeting. And I would add those to the reporting as well. And maybe remove some that the project managers thought were important, but maybe the VPs didn't. So once that project was done, there was some coding to do for the report development. I used SSRS for the reports, SQL Server Reporting Services. In Project Server, all the projects, tasks, and resource data is in SQL Server, so it's easy to get program-level reporting from the databases. The third report was current, critical, and late finish. Now, of course, we had the hardest time with the phrase critical task. Some team members kept wanting to believe that a critical task is one which is critical to the success of the project. People would say, okay, why isn't XYZ on the critical path? It's crucial. And then others would reply to them, hey, just mark it as critical, no big deal. I had explained to them what critical path means, no slack and all that, but apparently I hadn't communicated. So after people misunderstanding the report for a while, I retitled the report. Instead of saying just critical, I had a subtitle, Current, Critical, and Late Finish, retitled, Tasks on the Microsoft Project Generated Critical Path for Each Project, whose slippage may delay the individual project end date, who are slipping, and baseline finish is less than 2 weeks from now. But if not all successors are identified in the project, we might not know the project end date will slip. Did any of you get that? I actually showed the report to the executives one week with that subtitle. They looked at me a little weird. But, you know, you got to have fun. It took repetition and humor, but in the end, believe it or not, the concept did get through. Report number 4 was cross-project dependencies. Now, in order to understand and report on cross-project dependencies, a new idea was introduced, and that was give-gets. If a task in your project had to be completed before a task in another project could begin, we called that a give. The task in the receiving project is a get. Here we have a build project and a paint project. We build, and then we can paint. So I have a task in the build called complete the drywall, right? And that's a give because something is waiting for it. It's going to give to someone, to some task. And in the give get reference column, we put the task name and the project name of the receiving, of the one that comes after it. So the project name is paint project, paint the walls is the task name, and that's in the reference. Now, in the receiving project, we have a task called paint the walls. It's a get. And then in the reference column, we have the project name construction project, and we have the task name complete drywall. So once the tasks were coded, we could get report number 4. This 4th report showed the tasks that had successors and other plans where the predecessor task was late. Now, what happens when you start making the progress of activities more visible? The project managers start becoming more accountable. Their team's progress was not just on their desk anymore, it was on everybody's desk. We created some reports to help the project managers in keeping their plans accurate. These were kind of like exception reports. When we started looking at the output of these reports and the lack of compliance, it seemed that there was a need for a one-on-one with each project manager to review their plans, make sure they knew how to be compliant with our standards, because we didn't want them to have any finish in the past, meaning you have a finish date, which is in Microsoft Project an expected finish date with a past date. So I wouldn't allow, I'm expecting to finish this task last Tuesday. Okay, that we called that finish in the past. We didn't want any actual starts or actual finishes in the future. Paint the wall? Yeah, I started painting the wall next Friday. No, you didn't start painting the wall next Friday. We didn't want tasks with no resources. Every task had to have somebody assigned to it. We didn't want tasks with no successors because then we wouldn't have a complete network diagram and would be hard to find the critical path. And we didn't want tasks with no baseline because then we couldn't measure whether they were late or not. So this is what I had to work with each project manager on. Which leads us to the 3rd quarter, which was all about compliance. Getting the project managers to actually stick to standards, change the way they were used to doing things, not be afraid of change, learn the new way. That was a change management challenge. So I decided to conduct project review sessions, which were low-key, private, and short. They were working sessions with the project managers where we actually modified the plan at the session rather than asking them to return to their desks with a to-do list. So some of the things we worked on during the project review are the summary tasks nouns? Now remember, the summary tasks should be deliverables, so it should be a noun. It should be functional spec, right? And then tasks underneath it. What do you have to do to create the functional spec? Are there any resources on summary tasks? If you put resource names on summary tasks, then you can skew the reports where you have how many hours are in each summary section. Any predecessors or successors on summary tasks? That's another no-no because it can lead to circular reasoning, circular scheduling. Are there any detailed tasks? Are all the detailed tasks starting with a verb and they have an object? Detailed tasks should start with a verb, so it's really clear what you have to do for that task and when you can mark it 100% complete. And are milestones past tense? So documentation completed, right? Testing completed. Do milestones have a 0-day duration? Are all the tasks baselined? So they had a process where every time they added new tasks to their project plan, part of their procedure was to baseline those tasks. Are there any tasks with the actual start or actual finish in the future? And are there any tasks with a finish, meaning expected finish, in the past? And percent complete is less than 100. So those were our guidelines. Sometimes I'd run an exception report, like tasks with no successors, for example, and then send a friendly email. Action definitely needed. Project quality. Here she is again, the pesky project lady. Okay. Number of tasks with no successors allowed is the number of projects in our program. So if we have 40 projects in our program, I would like to see up to 40 tasks in my report with no successors, and that would be the last task of every project plan. Current number, 787. You're only allowed one task in your project plan without a successor, the last line. So there was that email. So do you think that was the end of the story? Compliance forevermore? Well, a month after the one-on-ones with the project managers, we were getting really good in the middle of the month, but then it started slipping again and the exception reports started being full again. The expected finish dates were in the past, there were missing resources. So I'm sitting there thinking, okay, I'm failing. I'm not helping them change. I'm terrible at adoption, change management. What's going on? I had to dig really deep into the creative well, and this is what I came up with. Peer reviews. Leave me out of it. I gave the project managers a checklist as a cheat sheet and paired them up to help each other. That actually worked really, really well. It was amazing. When they started analyzing somebody else's project plan, they started seeing the light, and teaching others helped them understand the actual concepts that we were trying to accomplish. So, are we there yet? At about that point in the year, I meandered into the vice president's office to make sure we were delivering what he wanted. He assured me, yes, we were, and just keep it up. But that was a little bit too vague for me. So I said, well, what are your goals for the project plans? He said he wants 3 things. He wants the project plans to be comprehensive. That means everything that's being worked on is in a project plan somewhere. Nobody's doing work that's not represented by a task in a project plan. To satisfy goal number 2, up-to-date project plans, we created a weekly updates process. All the project managers had to update the progress on tasks by Wednesday noon. Wednesday afternoon, I'd run reports, and they'd be ready to present at the Thursday morning weekly executives meeting. So, up-to-date project plans. Number 3 was the ability to easily get high-level reporting, and that would be the reports that you saw, the 4 reports that the executives wanted. So those were the 4 goals, and it was really good to summarize it this way and for all of us to keep in mind what the project plan goals were. Comprehensive, up-to-date, and ability to get high-level reporting easily, meaning using whatever custom fields are needed or whatever standards are needed in order for the reporting to come out right. Well, we had a weekly updates process to make sure that everything was up to date regularly before reporting, but of course some people forgot to update their plans by Wednesday. So one guy said, well, Aviva, if you'd remind me every week, maybe I'd remember to do it. Not my job, but well, maybe it was kind of my job. So I did. I started sending a reminder email. Every Wednesday morning at 8 a.m., I sent out a reminder email, trying to take all the excuses away, right? To Evergreen Plan Managers, please remember to update and publish your project plan. This is Project Server, so update and publish your project plan by today at noon. I sent it 8 a.m., do it by today at noon. You can use the following checklist to verify your plan's compliance to the Evergreen standards. And then we had a quality checklist, which was attached to the email. After a while, though, I found that the gentle suggestion to use a quality checklist wasn't helping. So the email got a little more up close and personal. The tasks that needed updates were there for all to see in Reports for Project Managers. So I actually attached a report to the email, not just the guidelines, but I attached a report where each non-updated task had a project manager's name associated with it. And actually, the project managers, rather than being embarrassed, they actually liked these reports because I ran these reports first and then gave them some time to fix things and then ran the reports for the executives. So they would just look for the section of their project and fix their stuff. One annoying challenge, though, that didn't seem to go away was the number of tasks with an expected finish date in the past. So, if obtained sign-off has an expected completion date of August 3rd, and it's now August 10th, the plan is not up to date. Any task which is not 100% complete should have an expected finish date in the future. We call the exceptions finish in the past tasks. Then there were some more, the more humane events, like bringing food to our weekly program management meetings. Sometimes there were leftovers, so another email went out. 1 p.m. had told me that if I wanted them to do an action in an email, I should put the word action in the subject line. So I did. Action needed now. Go get the leftover bagels. And sometimes there were even compliments. We had amazing achievements some of the time, and they deserve to be complimented. And love letters. Note the font change. Shake it up. Hello, hardworking, ever-flexible Evergreen project managers. Here are the updated reports and stats to assist you in managing stuff with love. Aviva. I don't know. I didn't ask HR about that, but I think it's okay. Then, after that flood of creativity, the regular old boring reminder emails continued. So I did maybe another 8 more weeks of the same format, and then I got brave again, because of course, then we were a little bit sliding again. So, to Evergreen Plan Managers, the time has come, the time is now. Update your plan. I won't show you how. But if you're wondering how the reports will look, well, fix them now so you'll be off the hook. So are you getting the idea? You have to mix it up. Don't be boring. Remember I took the red, yellow, green report out of the web interface since that was too much visibility for the project managers without them being able to explain why things were red? Well, in their own client software, it was okay. I created a custom enterprise-wide view within Project Professional where the project managers could see the finished variance or date slippage of each task. The web view was based on finished variance of the project as a whole, but these were the finished variance of each task. The first time the project managers opened this view, some of them got a real shock. My phone was actually ringing off the hook. How come there's so many reds in my project plan? You know, we had been looking at late tasks on the weekly reports for a while now, but the colors really brought home how many tasks were overdue and helped them to quickly identify them. So now let's talk about the meetings we had. In order to ensure continuing compliance to the program standards, at first we had some random workshops on specific topics, some training here and there, some brown bag lunches. But then it became clear that we actually needed working sessions on a weekly basis in order to stay on the same page. This whole program was a major change in how the project managers at this company worked. It greatly increased their visibility and accountability, and they needed help to focus them every week on how to stay current so the visibility wouldn't come back to bite them. And what about when change happened? Sometime after the development folks thought they were done developing, of course, a lot of change requests started coming through from the business. Well, to comply with the comprehensiveness goal of our project plans, one of our 3 project plan goals from the Vice President, we needed to make sure that all new activity would be represented in a plan. We did that through a custom field called, surprisingly, Change ID. For any new task added to an approved Change ID, the Change ID number would be added to the task or tasks in the project plan. Of course, we got the Change ID from a Change ID log, right? And then we just put that Change ID number in our custom field called Change ID. Change, of course, happens in every project and every program. You'll always need a change process in place for the inevitable changes and a way to ensure that the changes are actually being worked on and are being tracked. And finally, quarter 4, persistence. So by the start of quarter 4, we had increased from 6 projects when I had started with this company to 40 projects. And the program timeline now spans almost 2 years. We have now 36 project managers, some who have never used Microsoft Project before joining the Evergreen program. Wait, did I say 2 years? I thought this talk was 1 year in the life. Yeah, well, I couldn't title it 2 years in the life. I just couldn't. So it's 1 year in life, but actually it was 2 years of my engagement. Anyway, because of the constant onboarding of the new project managers and because people forget stuff, we did have to do continuous training cycles and compliance reporting cycles to bring the new project managers on board with new standards and keep the existing ones on track. And it wasn't that we just went from 6 projects to 40, from 6 project managers to 36 project managers. We also had some switch outs. So some project managers left, new ones came, sometimes it was in the middle. They had this 18-month rule. So if a project manager was there 18 months, they were out, even if they only had another few months in their project. So new project managers constantly had to be trained in the program and in the standards and how to comply. Once in a while, there was a need to show the exception reports in a chart format so people could see their continuous improvement. And I wanted to encourage them in that way. So we had a trending view. So I just took week by week some of the exception reports like actual start in the future, finish date in the past, tasks with no resources, give gets with no reference, and went from week to week and actually showed them, wow, you guys are really, really improving. So actual start date in the future, that was easy for them to improve. The finish date in the past, not so much. They started improving greatly the first 2 weeks, and all of a sudden the 4th week, I don't know what happened. It all slipped. People were busy that week. But then with enough encouragement and reminders and continuing education, they went right back to a better number. And the trending really helped them. So to tie all this together, I am going to show you now a picture you've seen a million times before. Some people call it the 3 Ps: people, process, and platforms. But it is tried and true, and that's why you've seen it a million times before. By developing the standards and getting people's buy-in and training them on tools, we really did create a core team of people who were all on the same page and we're able to provide accurate data for good reporting. The technology was Microsoft Project Server. One example of the process was that we did the Wednesday noon updates, Wednesday afternoon report generation, Thursday morning executive reviews. As far as the people, we gave them the training on the tools and processes that they needed. We also got their buy-in to the changes that they needed to make whenever we introduced something new. We explained why and got as much buy-in as we could. So Q4 is all about persistence in what works right and continuous improvement where needed. Now let's summarize some of the lessons learned for other programs, other projects you might be involved with. Lessons learned. I could talk until tomorrow morning on this topic, actually, and would love for it to be a two-way talk. Wait, it already is tomorrow morning for some of you. But we will start with just a few highlights. Okay, so number one, change takes time. This effort really was more than the 4 weeks of work I had originally thought. Number two, change takes persistence. Do not get discouraged. Don't give up. Lather, rinse, repeat. Lather, rinse, repeat. If people are not changing, there's a good reason they're not changing. Think about it. Talk to them. Which leads us to number three, which is listen. The one-on-ones that I had with the project managers, the weekly meetings I had with all of them were invaluable for getting feedback and knowing what to stress, what to help them with, why they pushed back when they did. And number four is really listen. The stoplight report on the web, remember that one? It looked pretty cool to me. It looks pretty cool to execs, but I listened to how the project managers felt about the executives seeing red and stopped showing them at the executive meetings. I took out the stoplights. Number five, you'd be amazed. I mean, you wouldn't be amazed because you know this already. Treats work. Veggies, Starbucks cards, Friday bagels, cookies, ice cream, whatever works. And yes, I did bring ice cream one time. That was fun. Number six is use humor. I remember one day we had a new project manager and we were going around the room introducing ourselves. So one guy said, "Hi, I'm Mike, quality manager." And then Steve, publishing. Narayan, development. Came to me and I said, "Aviva, policewoman." And everybody burst out laughing. So I realized, oh my gosh, that's how they really see me, a policewoman. You know, you can think that people see you that way, but to get it confirmed is a little bit jarring. But yeah, I guess that was kind of part of my role. So anyway, humor is good. It takes the tension out of situations. Number seven, you try doing what you're asking of them. So I created a project for report development, for example, and I updated my own project every Wednesday morning, just like they did. And everything I asked them to do, I did. I reviewed my project for compliance. I updated it every week, at least. Made sure the detailed tasks started with the verb, the summary tasks were nouns, made sure there was a successor at the end of every task. And by me doing what I was asking them to do, you realize, oh, wait, this is not so easy to understand. Wait, I better write up something about it and help them with it. Or, oh, this might not be necessary. You know, you just get a lot of information if you do what you're asking them to do. And next is the most technical tip of this entire session. As a matter of fact, of the whole 24 hours of sessions, and that is, I'm waiting, colors. I love colors. Colors really, really help. You know, when I changed to colored reports in the weekly executive meeting, a different color for each report. They loved it. They instantly recognized what report they were looking at. The give-gets were greens, right? Green, G, give-get. They had a green report, they had a red report, they had a yellow report, and they knew what they were looking at. It really helped. And then remember I colored certain words in the emails that I sent to the project managers? So colors help. It's all good. It is all good. Which is such a great note to end on. Oh, wait. And of course they lived happily ever after. The end. So, thank you for being such a wonderful audience. And you were so quiet. And thank you to our sponsors who helped make this grand event possible. Here is my contact information if you want to stay in touch or want to discuss anything I've spoken about. And I appreciate you all listening today. Enjoy the rest of your sessions.